Hello, and welcome back to the Crime Reel. For this week's true crime narration, we shall be looking at the lives of the Ewell family, consisting of Dale and GLEE Ewell and their two children, Tiffany and Dana. Dale Ewell was born on the 11th of October 1932 in Butler County, Ohio. He was the second of 5 children born to Austin and Mary Ewell. As a child, Dale worked on his father's dairy farm. He attended Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, where he joined the flying club and soon became obsessed with airplanes. After a short spell in the Air Force, he met GLEE Mitchell in Phoenix, Arizona. GLEE was born on the 13th of January 1935 in Cook County, Illinois. After a brief time in Argentina working as a Spanish translator for the CIA, GLEE moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where she was studying to become a social studies teacher when she met Dale. The couple soon fell in love and were married in 1961 when Dale was 29 and GLEE was 26. After their wedding, they settled in Fresno, California. Dale started work selling planes and developed what was to be an extremely successful and lucrative business selling small aircraft. The company was Western Piper Sales Incorporated. Dale was a great salesman and shrewd businessman who not only took the airplane dealership from strength to strength, but used some of the profits to invest in several farms, stocks and bonds to produce a very profitable financial portfolio. On 1st of May 1967, they welcomed their first child, a daughter who they named Tiffany. When Tiffany was just a baby, she was seriously injured in a car accident, which resulted in her having a steel plate implanted in her head, but fortunately she made a full recovery. 4 years later, on the 28th of July 1971, Dale and GLEE welcomed their second child, a boy who they named Dana. They had a happy family life. Dale continued to work as president and owner of Western Piper, whilst GLEE raised the children who she completely doted upon. She also became very active with local community projects and heavily involved with various charities. The family lived in the affluent Sunnyside area of Fresno, California, and also owned a weekend home overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Pajaro Dunes, about an hour and a half south of San Francisco. They were private people who were very discreet about their business success, living a very comfortable but not overtly wealthy life. Tiffany and Dana both attended San Joaquin Memorial High School, a private Catholic school in Fresno. They were both smart kids, with Dana being described as a straight A student. Whilst Dale and GLEE were modest when it came to their own lifestyle, they were far more indulgent when it came to their children. It is believed that Tiffany and Dana received an $800 monthly allowance and were both bought new cars when they graduated from high school. Both children then moved on to college, Tiffany attending near the family home in Fresno, whilst Dana moved to study at Santa Clara University, just south of San Francisco. Dana majored in business and finance. Unlike his parents and sister, he was always concerned with showing off his wealth and was known for wearing Armani suits to class, and had even been known to arrive at school in a limousine. To those who knew him, it seemed that the most important things in his life were wealth and image. He was determined to become a world-famous business tycoon and was voted the most likely to succeed in his high school yearbook. However, it would seem that Dana was more interested in the money than he was in finding ways of earning it. At the end of 1990, a newspaper printed an article about Dana which featured details of his business accomplishments, from the airplane dealership to the money he had made from stocks and shares, accomplishments which had all, in fact, been achieved by his father. These lies put a strain on Dana's relationship with his father, Dale. By 1992, Tiffany was a graduate student at California State University and Dana was in his senior year at Santa Clara. Dana had started dating a young lady by the name of Monica Zent, with whom he had become friends a couple of years earlier. The Ewell family had decided to spend Easter weekend 1992 at their beach house. On Saturday the 18th of April 1992, they were joined by Dana's girlfriend Monica, along with her parents, for a dinner party. The following morning, Dana played some tennis with his father and then went for a walk along the beach before leaving his parents and sister at the beach house to go and spend the day with his girlfriend and her family. GLEE and Tiffany left the beach house and drove back to Fresno in the afternoon of Easter Sunday 1992, while Dale flew home in his aeroplane slightly later. Dana and Monica spent the evening having dinner with Monica's parents in Morgan Hill before heading back to Santa Clara University, where they were both students. 2 days later, on Tuesday the 21st of April, at approximately 9 a.m, Rosie Avitia, the Ewell's housekeeper, together with her cleaning crew, arrived at the Ewell family home in Fresno. Rosie had worked for the family for over 12 years and knew all of them well. As she walked towards the front door, she saw one of their neighbours waiting in the garden. The neighbour seemed concerned as he had just received a call from Dana, who was worried that he had been unable to contact his parents since he left them at the beach house on Easter Sunday. As Rosie unlocked the front door, she immediately became concerned that the security alarm had not been set, and it was soon apparent that the entire house had been ransacked. As Rosie and the neighbour walked into the kitchen, they saw Tiffany lying face down in a pool of blood. She had been shot in the back of the head. They immediately left the property and called 911. When the police arrived and entered the building, they found another body in the hallway. It belonged to 59-year-old Dale, who had also been shot in the back of the head. Moving through the house, the police then found the body of 57-year-old GLEE in the family office. She had been shot multiple times and had died with her hand over her head in what appeared to be an attempt to shield herself from the attack. It is believed that she was the only one who saw her attacker. Examination of the scene soon determined that Tiffany had been shot first, and it was assumed that GLEE, having witnessed her daughter being murdered, tried unsuccessfully to run away. Approximately half an hour later, Dale had returned to his home where he was shot as he entered the hallway. The time of death was estimated as being between 5 and 6 p.m. There was no signs of forced entry, no unusual fingerprints, and no trace evidence, and whilst very initial thoughts were that the family had disrupted a burglary, this was soon discounted as the police felt that the house was almost too ransacked and that a burglary had been staged in order to hide the killer's true motive. The shootings were very methodical. The bullet cases had been collected and removed from the crime scene. It didn't sit right to the detectives involved that these were spontaneous killings as a result of a burglar being disturbed. The police contacted Dana at his college to inform him what had happened to his family. He immediately returned to Fresno to sit down with police to provide them with any assistance in the case. At the time of the murders, Dana had been with Monica and her family nearly 200 miles away. Her father, an FBI agent, confirmed this to the police. Dana's behaviour appeared extremely strange to the officers who spoke to him. He displayed little emotion and was very matter-of-fact when answering their questions. He was rigid and composed. The police officers assumed that Dana was in shock. However, Dana's behaviour the following day led to many of those working on the murder case becoming suspicious. Having been asked to accompany detectives to the crime scene, Dana seemed strangely detached and unaffected. He walked straight over to the spot where his mother had been gunned down without any consideration and seemed only interested in an itemised list of things that police would be removing from the house. This strange behaviour, along with the fact that Dana stood to inherit the family's entire wealth, estimated to be approximately $8 million at the time of the murders, led detectives to consider him as a suspect despite his airtight alibi. Dale's brothers were shocked by Dana's behaviour. Within 2 days of the murders, Dana was asking for the details of the will. When he was told that the will did not contain any burial instructions, he was disinterested and simply wanted to know what provisions had been made for the money. Believing that he would inherit all of the money immediately, when he was informed that his parents' will stated that their estate would be distributed as a trust and would be paid to him in increments up until he was 35, he flew into a rage, punching the table and screaming, "Why would he do this to me?" 6 days after their murders, a memorial service was held for the family. It is reported that Dana was acting more like someone who was hosting a party than someone mourning the death of his entire family. When the house was cleared as a crime scene and Dana was allowed to take possession of the home again, he claimed that he couldn't possibly live there until a specialist crime scene cleanup crew had visited to thoroughly sanitize the house. However, a month after the murders, a friend, Michael Poindexter, who visited Dana, claimed that there was still bloodstains and bullet holes visible in the home that Dana was now living in. At the time, Dana told Michael that the police would never solve this case. They're a bunch of dummies. Despite the detective's suspicions, there was nothing to link Dana to the murders. The police followed a variety of leads over the following few months. Had Dale made some enemies during his many business dealings? Were the murders linked to GLEE's previous work with the CIA? But all leads ended up being dead ends. The only one who had a clear motive for the murders was Dana, but he had an airtight alibi. The police started to work on the theory that Dana had planned the murders, but had arranged for someone else to carry them out. Detectives decided to visit the campus at Santa Clara University to find out more about Dana. When speaking to friends and other students on the campus, a name that would keep getting mentioned was that of Joel Patrick Radovich. Prior to his graduation the previous December, Joel had lived in the same dorm as Dana. The two men had struck up an unlikely friendship. Joel was a scruffy loner who did not have many friends, and after graduating had returned home to live with his parents, where he remained unemployed. The detectives working on the case met with Joel, and their suspicions were immediately raised still further. One of Joel's first questions to detectives was, "Are you going to arrest me?" Police at this point had no reason to suspect Joel of anything, so was surprised by this reaction. When Joel was questioned, he claimed that he knew Dana, but not very well, and claimed to be at a nearby auto body workshop on the night of the murders. When police looked into this alibi, they discovered that the owner of the auto body shop had no recollection of Joel being present on Easter Sunday. They also found that Dana and Joel were a lot closer than Joel had described. Detectives were now convinced that Dana and Joel were responsible for the murders, but still lacked evidence to support this. Dana was put under surveillance in June of 1992. By this point he had offered a substantial reward for anyone who assisted with solving the crime, but had himself stopped talking to the police. Even though Dana was unable to access his father's wealth, he still received a significant amount of money from accounts that were outside of the probate conditions and from his sister Tiffany's estate. It is believed that these amounts totaled over $500,000. Before long, Joel had moved into the house in Fresno with Dana, and despite Joel having no form of income, the two men embarked on an extravagant lifestyle. Among many other things, Dana and Joel took helicopter flying lessons, scuba diving lessons. Dana bought his girlfriend a new car and spent over $130,000 on an airplane. Aware that they were being watched, Dana and Joel would often drive erratically to ensure that they weren't being followed. When apart, they would talk using a system of payphones and pagers to try to avoid detection. The detectives managed to obtain a duplicate of the pager used by Joel. This allowed them to place undercover officers near the payphone when the two men would communicate, at least allowing them access to one half of the conversation. To continue to fund his extravagant lifestyle, Dana started to sell many of his parents' personal possessions and even took $400,000 that had been set aside to pay for his grandmother's nursing home care. Dana had temporarily left college after the murders, but returned in the spring of 1993 to finish his final year. Still without enough evidence for an arrest, the detectives decided to visit Dana at the university to see if they could rattle him. The detectives informed Dana that they believed they had found the killer of his family. Dana's reply was hostile and disinterested, until such time as the detectives mentioned Joel Radovich by name, at which point Dana became very nervous and ended their conversation. In 1994, Dana's grandfather, who had been particularly outspoken in his belief that Dana was guilty of the murders, died in an explosion at his house in Ohio. Fire officials stated that the cause of the explosion was an unsafe gas generator. As police continued their painstaking investigation, they found that Dana had set up approximately 25 different bank accounts in 14 separate banks. These were either in his own name or in a joint account with either his girlfriend or grandmother. Whilst none of these were illegal, it all linked back to his pattern of odd behaviour. Eventually, there was a break in the case. It was established that the murder weapon was a specialty 9mm assault rifle which had been manufactured in Colorado. They then determined that one such rifle had been bought in April 1992 by a man called Ernest Ponce, who was known as Jack. Jack had been friends with Joel in high school. The investigation began to centre more upon the forensic evidence, and it was found that a homemade silencer had been used during the killings. The police interviewed Jack about the gun. He claimed that he had purchased the gun for himself, but that it had subsequently been stolen. Jack claimed that Joel had no knowledge of the gun. Police searched Joel's family home on the 2nd of March 1995, and they found evidence of a homemade silencer which had been made in the garage. They were finally able to forensically link the gun bought by Jack, the homemade silencer from Joel's house, and the Ewell family murders. Shortly afterwards, Jack was arrested. When threatened with charges that would make him an accessory to murder, Jack agreed to testify for the prosecution in return for immunity. Jack told the police details of the murders which Joel had told him. According to Jack's claims, Joel had told him that he had been lying in wait for the Ewell family to return. He had been wearing multiple pairs of gloves, removed all of his body hair, and was sitting on plastic sheeting to ensure that he did not leave any trace evidence. Joel also informed Jack that Tiffany and Dale were shot before they had any idea of what was going on in the house. However, GLEE had looked him in the eye before he had killed her. Having been at the Ewell's house in the weeks before the murder, GLEE would almost certainly have recognised her killer in the moments before her death. Jack reported that after the 3 shootings, Joel attempted to check all of their pulses to ensure they were dead before waiting for the cover of darkness to make his escape. Joel also said that Dana was going to split the $8 million inheritance with him, and that the 2 men had plans to relocate to Europe. Jack also informed the police that Joel's older brother Peter had made the silencer. Peter was also arrested. Again, he struck a deal and in return for immunity agreed to testify against his brother and Dana. Peter confessed to making the silencer for the murder weapon, although claiming he did not know what it was to be used for, and together with Jack had disposed of gun parts, the fired shells, silencer and the shoes Joel had been wearing during the murders. Jack and Peter's stories tallied. Jack then took the detectives to the location where the silencer had been hidden. Finally, with enough evidence in hand, Dana Ewell and Joel Radovich were arrested and charged in March 1995, almost 3 years after the murders. After numerous delays, the trial eventually started in late 1997. Prosecutors stated that they believed Dana's motive was greed and Joel's motive was the substantial share of the inheritance that Dana had promised him. Dana and Joel were represented by different attorneys who had very different strategies. Dana's defense attorneys insisted that he was innocent and it was Joel and Jack who had planned and executed the murders. However, faced with the overwhelming evidence against him, Joel's defense attorney concentrated on a strategy which would hopefully see him avoid the death penalty for his part in the crimes. The jury trial lasted for over 8 months, during which time neither defendant took the stand. Following 11 days of deliberations, the jury returned their verdict. Both Dana and Joel were found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. Both men were facing the death penalty, but on the 20th of July 1998 were instead sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Joel was sent to the Mule Creek State Prison in Lone, California. Dana remains in the Protective Housing Unit of California State Prison with other murderers who need to be isolated from the general prison population. He still protests his innocence and 3 years after his conviction turned to religion for comfort. Obviously, his conviction prevented him from claiming any of his inheritance, which was subsequently split between remaining relatives. After Jack Ponce's immunity deal, he went on to become an attorney and still practices in Southern California to this day. Peter Radovich now runs and owns a company in the Los Angeles area. Dana's girlfriend Monica Zent also went on to become an attorney and practices at her own firm in Central California. All appeals for Dana and Joel have been rejected and they will remain in prison until their dying days. Thanks for listening to that story. Please comment down below. Please like and subscribe. I was after a small favour. If you think you've got any friends or family that may be interested in joining this channel, please recommend me to them. I'd be grateful if they did sign up. Thanks very much for supporting the channel, guys. As you know, I normally leave a message at the end after I've said goodbye, but there won't be one this week. Thank you for listening again to Thecrimereel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst, tut tut tut. Are you still listening? You are naughty, but I like you. Goodbye.